Hi and welcome to today's brand review, which is going to be a little bit different. Today we are talking about, as you've read from the title, about Nomad Cosmetics. And you see, I'm already done because this video is going to be split up in 3 different parts. Part 1 is I will give you some brief information about the brand. To be honest, there's not a lot to talk about since they are a very young brand. Then we will head over into a tutorial with their newest release, the new Ghost Town USA palette. Let me just show you a quick insight. Oh, it's delicious. And then we will talk after that about how I feel about this new palette. We will talk about the other palettes that I own and what kind of issues I do have with that. And then we will dig into a bit of drama surrounding this brand, actually from 2 years ago. So Nomad Cosmetics is a American-based, very interesting concepted brand. They are very young. They are founded in 2015. That means only 8 freaking years. It is founded by 2 people called, and I have to read that off, Felicia and Antti. And I think Antti is a Finnish name, and I read somewhere that one of them is American, the other one is Finnish. And let me just read that, what is on the website. We are in our hearts truly nomads, having lived all over the US and Europe and traveled to over 70 countries. We are inspired by every trip. We also know about makeup, and together we have over 25 years of work experience in cosmetics. In 2015, we combined our 2 passions and Nomad Cosmetics was born. Through it all, we stay rooted by spending time with our family, friends, and you, the beauty nomad community. They are living the travel dream. They travel a lot and they're living their dream. So basically, they are inspired by the locations they travel to. Let me just read off some of the destinations that were covered in their releases. And as I said, I have to read that off. We have Tokyo, Cartagena, Iceland, the VSO Express. The VSO. Is it the Orient Express? I don't know. The Whistler, which is I think Vermont, Paradise Islands, Provence, Monteverde, Hudson Valley, Verona, Royal Europe, Okavango. Now we have the Ghost Town. It's just all around. There was also a palette called the Berlin Underground that was like German based, but I think this is not available anymore, which actually is a bit sad. And so their goal is for every palette they release to capture the beauty and the feelings and the vibe of the specific location that this palette is aimed at. A very good example in my opinion, and I can only say that because I used to be there already, is the Santa's Village that came out for Christmas last year. This is inspired by Finnish Northern Lights, the Santa's Village, and I highly have to agree. The quality thing is something else, and we will talk about that later in the video, why I think this palette is one of the worst that Nomad Cosmetics has. But the color story, the vibe, the feels I get when I look at this palette is exactly what I see when I think of this specific region in Finland. There is a thing with a lot of indie brands that they apparently are private labeled. Private label means there is basically a factory where you let your products being produced and then you just stick your name on it. To be honest, I'm a bit confused with the private labeling when it comes to Nomad Cosmetics, because on the website it says all of our products are manufactured at Nomad Labs, hand-selected, state-of-the-art production facility in the Guangzhou district, China, that utilize the latest in cosmetic manufacturing technology and innovation and are internationally recognized with the ISO 22716 GMPC, the Good Manufacturing Practices for Cosmetics certification, and different regulatory authorities licenses. So basically they produce in China at their own lab? Or is this also private label? I was not able actually to find out like a valid source. When you search for private label indie brands through Google, through Reddit, apparently every single indie brand is private labeled. And I'm pretty sure it is not. But people like to stick that like certain vibe around an indie brand that they have to be private labeled. Otherwise they will not be able to keep up launches. But I'm not too sure about that. And to be honest, that is everything I was able to find about the brand, because the deeper I tried to get to this brand, I always landed on the infos that are on the website. Is this a good or a bad thing? I don't know. Is there something more that we need to know about the brand? I don't know. I would love to find out more about the founders, Felicia and Antti, and how they work, but sometimes they also do post like behind the scenes on their Instagram accounts where they travel, and that is really fun. Like, I'm talking about the Nomad Cosmetics Instagram account. I don't know what their personal account is, if they have one. But I personally enjoy the whole idea and concept. So now let's head over to the second part of this video, the tutorial on this beautiful eye look. Okay, so now let's head into, as promised, the palette. So this is the new Nomad Cosmetics Ghost Town USA. I think this is called the Gold and Grit, or the Grits and Gold, or the Ritz and Gold, or the Glitz and Grits. I don't know. I was one of the first 100 that ordered, so I got a golden ticket. And 10 of those golden tickets were like with a $100 gift card, but unfortunately I didn't do this. And now I can open the fucking packaging. You know what? It landed in one of my shelves. Pretty good, to be honest. Look at this. How fucking cool is this? It says Ghost Town USA. Who told me that this is the Gold and Grit palette? And here you have a look inside. I mean, look at those delicious shades. When we're done with the whole look, we're going to talk about the other palettes and the drama. But let me just talk about one drama in specific while we are doing this look. To understand what I'm talking about, I have to show you some of the pants up close, because I'm especially talking about, where was it? For example, the shade Gold Rush. You see this here? But it's also in the shade Arrested DK, which is this one down here. And also in this shade called Batman's Hand. Can you guess? You know, let's play a guessing game. Can you guess what the problem is? Pause the video, take your time, admire my ripped off carton. It's the pan embossing. People feel offended by an eyeshadow pan embossing because it's a hanging skeleton. And if that is something that offends you too, feel free to leave. Don't even know what I want to do. I think I want to do something with everything, but it's not possible. But no, you know what? We can do a little bit of brown, a little bit of green, and a little bit of blue. So we're starting the look with this shade called Skinner's Saloon. So why do people feel offended by the pan embossing and by a hanging skeleton? Well, apparently this is offensive towards survivors of suicide by hanging themselves. It is offensive towards ancestor of slavery, I think, and it is offensive towards those who have families or like historical events where people were hung as a like death sentence back then in the 1800s, something like that. And if you want to know where I got this from, just head over to the Nomad Instagram website. I think it was the first post where they showed like the full pans or the full palette. People discussed about that underneath, and all I was doing was like doing the biggest face palm in history of face palms, like, because I don't understand this. I don't get it. Why do people feel offended by that? By the way, I really immediately enjoy the vibe that is going on. So, you know what? Let's be wild. I'm now going into the shade. This is called Stagecoach Mary. I mean, the whole palette is just so pretty. And I used this to deepen up outer V and crease, but we are going to go much more deep. But you know, whenever I do these first looks with a palette, I always want to use as many shades as possible so that I have a good feeling. If you have been following me on Instagram or even saw the latest videos that I did, you know that I last week just did the whole ABH fall romance thing, and it was just one disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. So this is just so refreshing to have something that just works. I'm now going into Arrested DK, a fluffy pencil brush, and I just concentrate the shade on really like the classic outer V. When I have a really darkened outer V area. The Nomad Cosmetic matte shades were never ever a problem for me, but I feel like they have improved over time a fucking lot. And please, as always, just trust the process because I like to work messy since my face is not done yet. I think for the crease shades that is enough, so let me just take some glitter glue, and I just want to say it once more. I use glitter glue with every single eyeshadow brand. It does not matter who it is, how expensive it is, what kind of color it is. I always use a freaking glitter glue because in my opinion, that just helps so much. And I'm just looking for a good brush. Yeah, let's take a smaller shader brush because I want to use a couple different shimmers on the eye. Because here it is where it decides for me if this palette is good or not. I will talk about this when we're done with the look, but in general, I do have a big problem with the Nomad shimmers, and I will show you then why. Actually, this time they look completely different than before. So it seems like they improved their formula, which is awesome. So I'm going into Garnet MT, and I know that MT is probably a shortened version for a state. Is it Montessori? No, probably not. What is MT? I'm just too lazy to go with Massachusetts. You know what? You can tell me. Oh, fuck it. I just barely touched the shadow. Do you see the dent? This is definitely a different formula. Do you see this face? Do you see this face? Oh, I think I just peed my pants a bit. And by the way, I'm still in my sleeping trousers. Because it's Sunday and actually I don't film on Sundays, but this time I had to since I haven't had the time to film during the week. So I apply Garnet MT on the outer V. I immediately want to point out that I feel like there is no real dark shimmer shade that could match this bluish green vibe because they all are much lighter than their matte companion shades. But this is something I can work with, you know, it's not a deal breaker for me. So I'm now going into this shade. This is Smoky Quartz. This has this an overspray? Oh shoot, I think they have an overspray. Why do you do this? And I use Smoky Quartz in the center and blend this into the Garnet shade. And now I'm heading into Quicksilver. These shades are so soft. First of all, they literally break when you touch them. So I have to press it back a bit. And the pan embossing is gone immediately. And of course, I did not take any photos beforehand. But we take Quicksilver. And I apply this on the inner part. Oh, fuck it. You know, this is a very, very wild look because we just are jumping between the warms and the cools and the browns and the blues and the grays and the greens. But you know, I want to use the highest amount of shades for this look. I'm going back with a little bit of Arrested DK and deepen up the outer V once more because a lot of Garnet just covered up that darkness. So I'm now going into Dead Man's Hand, another one with a hanging skeleton drama shade. But for real though, by the way, I'm just pushing it into the lashes. Is this something you are offended by? Okay, I mean, you probably are if you're gone by now and you unsubscribed or so. But I just don't see it. In the States, the Halloween thing is so big. We don't know that in Germany. Like even kids going around doing the trick-or-treat thing. This is something never happens. Like in the city I lived before, there are no kids going around. Nobody would do that. And just don't talk about the fact that nobody would give them treats because why should we give things out for free? Yeah, that is a lot of German mentality and I'm very ashamed of this. But the Halloween culture is so much bigger in the States. This is something I was always very jealous of because I feel like this could be a holiday or like a whole holiday season in Germany. That could be beautiful because of all our wonderful like trees and the forest. And when I just look straight out of the window, I do have 6 or 7 very big leafed, like trees with leaves, not the like, you know, there are like needle trees and then trees with big leaves. And I just can't wait to see how these leaves are all on the ground and how the colors change here. It's like we're made for a beautiful orange Halloween, but we don't celebrate it in Germany. So nothing is going to happen and we are going into Calamity Jane. Hanging skeletons are just part of Halloween decorations in my mind, or at least what I see from movies and TV shows that are taking place in the States and where people are just celebrating Halloween. I don't know. These times, like in 2023, people are offended by everything and everybody, and I am just too old for that shit. And have I just told you how beautiful these blend? I want to neutralize the blue a bit, so I'm going into I'm That Sheriff with a very fluffy pencil brush. And I just go over the lower part a bit so that it gets a nice diffused blend. And yes, I anticipated to blend it down so far to make it a little more on that. For inner corner highlight, of course, we're using Tombstone. Is it Tombstone or Tombstone? Because there is this game, Lara Croft. Is it Tomb Raider or Tomb Raider? Maybe it depends on where you're from. Tell me in the comments down below, is it Tomb or Tomb? By the way, I just want to thank you guys, because always when I ask you something like on pronunciation, because I'm just too lazy to Google, even if I can Google it very quick, you are always so helpful and tell me how the right pronunciation is or what a certain word means. It's I love that, because there is just a big difference between like talking from a dictionary, for example, and having one-to-one translation, or learning different slangs and different saying in the States. I just adore my own decision to go with this shade for the inner corner highlight, because this is one of the warmer shades and this is like balancing out all the cool blues and greens. I love it. Okay, we're now done with the look, so before we get into the review of the other palettes that I own, just let's talk about this palette. I think it's very obvious that I am absolutely in love. I am so happy that I instantly decided to buy this palette. Everything is just stunning. The mattes blend like a dream. I see how all of these just can work together. The only thing I truly want to criticize is the fact that it seems like every single shimmer in here, every single metallic, has an overspray that makes them look more holographic than they truly are. They are still stunning, but we don't need that shit overspray. Just don't do this to us. I love the fact that they just revamped their metallics, because this is the biggest point that I always criticized in any Nomad palette besides the Royal Europe. Personally, I'm not a fan of color coordinated layouts like this, so I'm also not a fan of the way Blend Bunny does it. I see how this is helpful for people, but to me, I do feel kind of limited sometimes. So me, myself and I, we just have to put a bit more effort with the brain to not stick to the rose. I know this sounds super weird, but when a palette is more like randomly with their shades and textures, I feel much more inspired than the color coordinated thing. The packaging, like this, oh. Nomad, you did a fantastic job on this palette. And I say this after just one use, because with eyeshadows, I know after one use, do I like them or do I not? And if I'm not sure, I will use this palette a couple times like I did with the AVH one. So the Ghost Town USA is my 5th Nomad Cosmetics palette. Let's just talk about the others that I have. All of their palettes are kind of designed for a travel destination or for a very specific theme of a area where they're going to. The first palette that I got from Nomad Cosmetics was this little 9-pen guy. This is the Santa's Village limited edition color palette that came out for Christmas season in 2022. First of all, this design, stunning. If that would be one of those like shifty pictures on top, I would totally have shed my pants. But this is inspired by a village.
You Julopukinkulia?
I'm sorry if I offended any Finnish people. Finnish is a really hard language to speak and to read and to understand and to exist. But this is inspired by the village where Santa is living. Santa Claus. I wanted to say the Christmas man because in Germany we say Weihnachtsmann, which is one by one translated Christmas man. This palette, outer packaging, 10 out of 10. And then look inside, 10 out of 10. This is just inspired by the Northern Lights in Finland, inspired by the beautiful vibe that is going on, the snow, the forest, everything. This quality is shit. I'm not talking about the formats, white, red, green, gray. I know this is a very hard color story maybe to use for one look. I mean, you can totally do a red eyeshadow and then go in with the white to soften edges and to mix and match and to create your color that you are desiring. But these topper shades, or whatever they seem to be, are just bullshit. Let me just show you what I mean. So let's just take this. This is called Peace, a beautiful light blue. My finger is clean. And now I'm very softly swiping. And this is what I have on my finger. It is the sheerest amount of pigment. And the thing is, with my finger, this is the most I can get. As soon as you go in these shades with your brush, they do not perform anymore. So what I started to do is I used the Inglot, what's it called? The makeup mixing liquid. Put a droplet of this in directly in the pan and then mix it with the brush. That makes them usable. But to be honest, this is nothing I want to do just to make a fucking eyeshadow work. I still keep this palette because I just love the theme. I love the way it looks, and it was a limited edition, so it is not available anymore. And the whole vibe is just, it's making me really happy. If this palette was the only one that I ever tried, I would not have looked back into Nomad Cosmetics because I feel like the amount of disappointment that I had after using this was just too much. But in that same order, I also picked up this palette. This is the Nomad Whistler Snow Lodge. And I think this is Vermont. Yeah, I think the destination here is Vermont. Look at this color story. Is this not the definition of a winter palette? I see it. The winter theme. The sun hitting the snow, fire in a like cabin somewhere in the mountains. This is the vibe that I get. And this quality, especially of the shimmer shades, is so much better than in the Santa's Village. I really enjoyed this palette. I do also have swatches of this here on my YouTube channel. If I don't forget it, link it somewhere here. It's a beautiful palette. The mattes perform excellent, the shimmers perform excellent, and everything is just absolutely stunning. And then I forgot about Nomad a while, and then they came out with their Verona Amore e Morte, like Love and Death palette for February, like the Valentine's Day release. I ordered that on Valentine's Day when it came out, and it came 2 days before I moved into my new house. And because shipping from the States to Germany sometimes can take up to 3, 4, 6 weeks, I thought, let's just ship it already to the new address. And of course it came earlier, so this palette got back. Let me just show you how beautiful this palette opens. So here I have the palette, and that is how it's opened. This design with the 2 sides of the Love and Death is just genius. And if you don't know Romeo and Juliet, it's in Verona, Italy. That is what this palette is inspired by. Look at this, beautiful. And I've used, I've did a couple looks with this. only using the pink side, only using the dark side, and also mixing them. To be honest, the mattes, stunning. But do you know what happened? The Verona Amore e Morte palette has the same shit quality shimmers as in the Santa's Village. And I was so disappointed in that. But the thing is, I just love the theme and the design too much to let this go. If you didn't know, Romeo and Juliet is not only one of my favorite like books or like stories from the classical literature things, but the 1995 or 1996, I think 1996 movie with Leonardo DiCaprio is my favorite movie of all time. Nothing beats the Romeo and Juliet movie. But the quality of the shimmers is so bad. I just had to get the Royal Europe because, I don't know, I just felt like it would be a nice thing. And then I opened this and I was underwhelmed, to be honest. I still think the color story of the Royal Europe is incomplete. There is something missing. Everything is just too dark. Even Schönbrunn Palace is too dark when you apply this. But there's one thing that first of all was new to Nomad Cosmetics and that literally healed the wounds in my heart that I got from Santa's Village and from the Amore e Morte palette. This row of multi-chromes. They have a new formula. They revamped it and everything, it's just stunning. And this formulation, this creamy metal is similar to what you get in the Ghost Town USA. I think these are a bit more velvety in the feeling, while these remind me a lot of, what's it called? Let me just think. Odin's Eye is still different, I think. They're just so soft to the touch. I do have similar palettes where it is the same. Pigment is instantly moving, but the way it applies is just stunning. When I remember it, what formulation this reminds me of, I will put it somewhere on the screen. I don't want to check all the palettes. And last but not least, we talked about the drama around their pens, and somewhere in the comments there, under that initial post, there was somebody who was like, oh yeah, Nomad already had a lot of controversies around their designs and their things. And I was like, what controversy? And then I digged in deep. Okay. 2 fucking years ago, they were about to release, or they did release, a Shanghai inspired palette, and they took that off of their whole collection and did a Instagram post. We have heard your concerns and listened to your valuable feedback regarding the offense we caused with the launch of our Shanghai palette. We want to say that we are truly sorry. Effective immediately, we will be discontinuing the Shanghai palette. And then I just had to dive in deep. And what was the problem? Wait a second. I had to read like 50 comments now on Reddit to finally find out what the fucking problem was. And I'm sorry. Okay, there is this comment who basically explains a lot. As someone who likes this brand and has a lot of their products, I was very curious this week, so I followed along pretty closely. There were stories being shared on IG about how some of these shade names, the concept of yin and yang, and their initial caption on launch day of how the brand recognizes the palette may not be for everyone, so basically that was a statement they did, was seen as anti-Asian and selling a culture that isn't theirs. From the start, people who are Asian who were calling the brand out were met with non-Asian people speaking over them and getting very nasty in the comment sections. And the brand did nothing to stop the bullying going on in the comments. It got worse throughout the week when they added a charitable aspect after the fact without explanation why. There is a lot more behind the scenes, but I hope that helps clear up some confusion, because I 100% agree they pulled the launch without an explanation of the feedback that led to decision, and anyone who didn't keep up and are left only to speculate. Okay, so basically what I read here in between lines, and correct me if I get this wrong, because I mean, it's 2 years ago. I just want to slap my face with a hammer. Apparently, because the owners of Nomad Cosmetics are American and Finnish, are not seen to be qualified to do a palette themed around another country or another culture. And because both of them are not Asian, Asian people felt offended. Non-Asian people felt offended. Like, what the fuck is going on? I don't even know what to say about this. The only thing I have to agree, if it is true that the comment section was getting out of hand and people insulting people and they did not stop this, that is not a cool move. But everything else, like, is this really a thing now? I am not able to create some piece of paper and pigment when I'm not from that country that I try to, like, capture the beauty of in a fucking palette. People from Vermont, are you offended by this? People from Italy, are you offended by this? Here's a really cool comment. Oh wow, basing their products around different locations is really their whole thing. So I wonder if they're just gonna have to scrap their whole brand concept or what. I just mean, isn't there a risk that any culture they choose to feature could possibly feel offended? I'm definitely not saying that anybody would be wrong to be offended. In fact, I think I remember the Haruyuku palette was a little iffy, but was my blah blah blah. But won't there forever be a huge risk? Scrapping the whole palette had to cost them a ton of money, so they've got to be afraid of that happening again in the future, right? Then somebody commented, they could stick to themes from travels in European countries. Why should they? Why the fuck should they? And then somebody commented that probably one of the problems was that they did not enough research on the Chinese one. Okay, so enough of that fucking drama because I'm just sick of this. I personally think the whole concept of Nomad Cosmetics is beautiful. I don't feel offended by a European palette. Are you Americans living in the, I think this is like the middle of America where the whole saloon thing is? I'm actually not very sure. Designed on location, ghost hunting in America's Old West, proud support. Okay, so like the Wild West of America. People who live in that area, are you offended by this palette? Please don't be offended by the fucking pan design, but are you offended by the color story or the names? I don't know. I love the concept of Nomad Cosmetics and the fact that they, with their newest release, were able to amp up the quality of their metallics that have been a big issue for a lot of people. Good! Keep on that fucking work. I cannot wait to see more of the stuff that you create. And so that is what I want to end this video with. I love the brand. I love the concept of the brand. I love participating in their games when there is a new palette they are going to release. I just think this is so clever and so unique. Tell me in the comments down below, have you ever gotten anything from Nomad Cosmetics? Is this the brand that you're interested in? Maybe the new Ghost Town palette, is this something that you might love? Do you want to see more like looks with this? I can totally do this, and I probably will because the quality is really good. And tell me your thoughts down below. Don't forget to check out the info box because on Instagram and TikTok I do fun shit too. You can support my channel when you buy me a slice of pizza that will be reinvested in new palettes. So for example, this palette was basically bought by you because the donations that I got in the month of August went into buying this palette. The donations that I got throughout the month of September were financing, for example, the ABH Fall Romance palette. I truly regret that I just literally wasted your money on this, but I will link the video up there. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to see more of these, and I will see you in the next one.